As darkness enveloped the night, millions of Russians began to comprehend the grim reality faced by Ukrainians. This revelation unfolded on October 30th, when President Putin resorted to a familiar tactic, targeting civilians. Ukrainian President Zelensky's words encapsulated the chaos. On that fateful night, Russia unleashed a staggering assault, launching over 650 drones and more than 50 missiles, totaling over 700 attacks aimed primarily at energy infrastructure and civilian populations. Zelensky reported the devastating toll: lives were lost, and countless individuals were left injured. The particularly vicious bombing of the Slovenian thermal power plant in Donetsk Oblast claimed the lives of 2 innocent civilians, leaving devastation in its wake. This was poison, not just a war. Putin's strategy blurred the lines of humanity as he unleashed terror against the Ukrainian populace. This cruel tactic aimed to shatter the spirit of the Ukrainian people by plunging them into darkness, forcing them to face a harsh winter devoid of electricity, water, or heat. Last winter, his efforts fell short, but this year he returned with renewed vigor and an arsenal of 700 drones and missiles. In his mind, he believed this unspeakable display of force would shatter Ukraine's resolve, coaxing the weary citizens of Ukraine to turn against their leaders and plead for surrender. Yet, he underestimated the metamorphosis Ukraine had undergone. This time around, the cost of his aggression would be steep. Within a mere 24 hours, as Putin's bombs rained down, the consequences of targeting civilians would ricochet back to his own doorstep. While he aimed to instill despair in Ukraine, the Ukrainian response was calculated, aiming squarely at the foundation of Putin's military ambitions. October 31st dawned, marking a pivotal moment. Zhukovsky, in the Moscow region, became the stage for a horrific spectacle. One by one, the lights flickered and died, plunging streets and homes into unyielding darkness. The air thickened with uncertainty as panic began to spread. Official channels, in a desperate bid to quell anxiety, insisted, "No panic, it's just a malfunction." But Moscow's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, begrudgingly acknowledged the truth: the experience of encountering falling drones was all too real. What was the actual narrative here? Why manufacture a fiction around a mere malfunction when undeniable evidence pointed to a graver attack? Simply put, the truth threatened to destabilize Putin's carefully constructed facade, shattering the illusion that citizens were safe, insulated from the ravages of war. This was not merely a failure in power, it was the unraveling of a promise he made to his people, that war existed far from their sheltered lives. The reality of the conflict now bled into the heart of Moscow, shaking the city's foundations at its very core. As the night progressed, the Ministry of Defense released a statement claiming to have shot down 98 drones in multiple regions, including 11 targeting the capital. But the blackout affecting 224,000 residents was no accident. This was a meticulously orchestrated Ukrainian operation aimed at Putin's war machine. The onslaught was not merely aimed at flickering lights but at the lifeblood of his military power, targeting key infrastructure and sending Moscow's elite into chaos. What happens next could alter the balance of power entirely. The cost of war is not confined to the battlefield, it now echoes through the homes of Moscow, where the looming frost of winter coincides with a crippling darkness, one that neither Putin nor his people can outrun. The question remains: how will this shift in the battlefield reshape the very essence of a war that now threatens to ignite right at the heart of the Kremlin? Officials insisted it was a mere technical glitch. The mayor blurted out the truth about downed drones. Have you ever witnessed a nation's facade crumble under the weight of its own lies? Flickering shadows danced across Zhukovsky streets, the acrid scent of burnt circuitry hanging heavy in the frigid night air, sirens wailing like distant thunder. Why mask a blatant attack as a situation? Why feed propaganda when reality bites? The Kremlin's promise of safety shattered that October evening, exposing the fragility of power. A profound truth emerged: war's chaos no longer respected borders, invading Russia's heart with unrelenting force. Russian defense officials later confessed shooting down 98 drones across 10 regions that fateful night. 11 struck the Moscow area alone, with 6 aimed point-blank at the capital. Panic gripped communities as lights blinked out, plungers clicking desperately on vane switches, the chill of winter seeping through walls like icy fingers. What plunged 224,000 into darkness? No random mishap, but Ukraine's calculated onslaught, a strategic blow echoing the Kremlin's own ruthless tactics. Yet this was merely the prelude to deeper devastation. Amid the civilian turmoil, Ukraine's true ambition surfaced, crippling Putin's military might at its core. The strike's timing screamed deliberate precision, a winter harbinger shifting the war's brutal momentum. Chemical plant explosions and refinery blasts signaled Ukraine's escalation, turning the season into a psychological weapon. Why target energy hearts when frontlines beckoned? Neon flickered unevenly on faces etched with fear, the hum of distant generators underscoring vulnerability. Russia had battered Ukraine's infrastructure for 2 years, weaponizing frost to crush spirits. Now, Ukraine mirrored the cruelty, freezing hopes in Moscow's glittering elite circles. Towering structures trembled as the Vladimir transistor station, Russian for the energy lifeline, eroded under assault. Transformers groaned like wounded beasts, sparks flying in showers of orange embers, the pungent odor of melting insulation invading nostrils. Submarine fleet fuel pipelines ruptured next, crude gushing forth like life's blood spilled wastefully. Ukraine severed Moscow's vital arteries, leaving Alexander Shabalov's dream of Black Sea dominance in tatters. Imagine the humiliation, Putin's vaunted defenses, costing millions, failing to halt a drone swarm on November 2, engulfing Tuapse port in roaring infernos. Oil tankers burned fiercely, Rosneft's loading docks scorched and unusable, infrastructure teetering on collapse. Explosions rocked the night, over 13 counted by locals, each boom a declaration of failed might. Russian spokespersons admitted minor damage, but whispers revealed total disaster. Pressure mounted as exports dwindled, global dealers sniffing opportunity amid the chaos. Dillified figs admit their impotence, but Ukraine's fury only intensified, targeting Crimean oil depots where over a third of storage incinerated. Did prospective alliances waver, or did this prove Ukraine's revolutionary resilience? Secondary strikes on Simferopol revealed 4 of 11 tanks obliterated, 36% gone in embers. Ukrainian Security Service UAVs obliterated a Pan-Tsyr air defense system and radars, humiliating a second assault on Bardyankovia base since mid-October. Fires raged for days, Kedar LLC's gas station empire shaken to its foundations. Billion-dollar damage accrued from dual assaults, unraveling occupational economies. Putin faced a nightmare from his Supremo stronghold, questions swirling, could Moscow itself evade retribution? Streetlights in Zhukovsky dimmed irregularly, authorities chanting no panic, but Mayor Sergei Sobyanin confessed the drone slaughter. Pinch-rustling winds carried rumors as people huddled, the metallic tang of fear palpable. Officials peddled technical breakdowns, yet Sobyanin's admission unraveled myths. Why veil truth in absurdity? The regime's bedrock promise, that Moscow basked in safety while war raged distant, vaporized in frigid alleys. Defense Ministry claims of 98 interceptions across regions painted a facade, but 11 Moscow drones exposed raw wounds. 6 homed on the capital, sparking coordinated blackout terror. Ukraine's orchestration humiliated, civilian chaos masking military strangulation. Neptune missiles pierced air defenses, obliterating Moscow and destroying fuel lines in Putin's backyard. Ukrainian agents orchestrated this, leaving armies fueled in frost. Putin aimed to chill Ukraine's resolve with over 700 projectiles, but boomerang devastation caressed his capital. Zelensky condemned Russia's assault on Slovenia thermal plant, claiming lives and shattering normalcy. This war of terror shifted, Ukraine retaliating with precision RAF. Civilians endured, hardening spirits against Putin's siege. October 31 altered warfare, drones flickering like spectral harbingers. Ukraine's gambit was masterful, an iron fist response to Putin's barbarity. While Moscow plotted Ukrainian darkness, Zhukovsky plunged into void. Psychological warfare escalated, economic veins slashed. Imagine elite residences silent, communications fractured, panic channeled through uncontrolled channels. Military collapse loomed, Oriol thermal plant and Vladimir transformer fed defense titans, Tula region's tank refurbishments, missile assemblages frozen. Production lines halted, ammunition pipelines severed. Ukraine crippled not just present forces, but forged futures. Twist unfolded, insiders leaked truths, exposing Putin's regime as brittle, war's escalation forcing global scrutiny. Zelensky's defiance ignited alliances, draining Kremlin resources. Oil terminals in Tuapse roared, black smoke pillars towering, Rosneft's empire pleading. Strategic outlets disrupted, exports faltering. Ukraine devastated Russia, proving limits. October 31st flipped scripts, Putin's pride mimicked his victims' plight. As Ukraine faced relentless winter assaults, its adversary, Russia, wielded cold as a weapon against innocent civilians. On October 31, 2025, Ukraine struck back with a chilling precision that would shake the Kremlin to its core. The spotlight fell on nondescript utilities, where lights flickered and hope faded. Why should the pain of winter be theirs alone? In a masterful stroke, Ukraine sent more than 650 drones and over 50 missiles soaring into the night, hitting at the epicenter of Russia's arrogance. The elegant suburbs of Moscow, occupied by the elite, suddenly plunged into darkness. 224,000 residents found themselves stranded, an entire population thrown into chaos as the onset of winter tightened its grip, just as they had done to Ukraine. Images from Zhukovsky on that fateful night echoed with panic. Flickering streetlights faltered like dying stars. Citizens watched as their world transformed into a pitch-black void. Was it merely a technical glitch? Incredulous whispers filled the air, an urgent plea for the truth. The Russian authorities stumbled over their proclamations. Some murmured of a situation, while others confirmed drones overhead. But in that night, lives intermingled with fear and confusion. Walls that once seemed impenetrable crumbled before a well-orchestrated attack designed not just to extinguish lights but to instill dread in the heart of power. In the shadows, not only homes trembled. The essential pulse of Russia's military industry was imperiled. The Vladimirskaya transformer station, a pulse of electricity, coupled with the Oriol thermal plant, also powered the heart of the military machinery. Without power, production lines faced stagnation. Factories known for assembling missiles and refurbishing tanks began to shudder with uncertainty. Could Ukraine dismantle not just the present but the very future of the Russian army? As the cold winds blew through the emptied streets dotted with darkness, the realization dawned: the war had crossed frontiers, reaching into the sanctum of Moscow, an unexpected and haunting reality. The coordinated strikes were more than a retaliation, they were a profound message, a stark reminder that while Russia aimed to freeze one nation, it inadvertently brought winter's chill to its own doorstep. Ukraine had turned the tables. What would the Kremlin's next move be? The dominoes had fallen. Now, in this unpredictable theater of war, uncertainty ruled the stage, and every flicker of light carried the weight of a transformative showdown. Amid the chaos of civilian panic in Moscow's outskirts, the strikes targeted the Oriol thermal power plant and the Vladimirskaya transformer station. These vital hubs fed not just homes, but military factories in Vladimir, Oriol, and Tula regions, the beating heart of Russia's defense industry. Imagine the hum of assembly lines grinding to a halt, the sharp clang of metal tools falling silent. What if the very factories forging tanks and missiles for the front lines just stopped? This wasn't a random outage. The power cuts threatened to cripple production, leaving refinished tanks idle, missiles half-assembled, ammunition piles untouched. Ukraine wasn't just weakening Russia's current army, it was slashing at the future, severing the energy lifeline right as weapons were birthed. The air grew heavy with the acrid scent of overheated machinery, hands frozen in gloves as workers stood baffled in the dim glow. But the blows didn't end there. Picture the third domino toppling in a chain of terror, the destruction of the Moscow Ring fuel pipeline, a catastrophic blow to Putin's war engine. This artery pumped 3 million tons of jet fuel and 2.8 million tons of diesel each year. GUR operatives detonated explosives, rupturing 3 main pipes in an explosion that echoed like thunder, the ground trembling underfoot, a foul stench of spilled fuel wafting through the air. Suddenly, this logistical nightmare strangled the army's throat, not on distant battlefields, but at its core in the capital's shadow. Airbases like Kubinka and Chkalovsk faced instant fuel droughts, jets grounded with empty tanks, engines cold and useless. Strategic fighters meant to shield Moscow, bombers poised for strikes on Ukraine, all rendered paralyzed. Fuel stopped flowing, operations choked at the source. The tactile chill of failing systems left commanders in a sweat, gripping cold consoles as alarms blared. When these dominoes crashed in unison, civilian terror, factory shutdowns, fuel Armageddon, it crystallized. This was no mere skirmish, but a brutal strategic maul to the Kremlin's war beast. For ages, Moscow clung to a myth: painting itself not just Russia's capital, but the globe's most fortified bastion. This illusion rested on a three-tiered, billion-dollar air shield. The outer ring, the A-135 anti-ballistic missile system, boasting nuclear stoppers. The middle, scores of ES-400 and ES-500 Triumph batteries, encircling the city like iron claws. The inner core, Panzer S-1 systems perched on rooftops, drone-slaying sentinels over the Defense Ministry and Kremlin domes. Yet, on October 31st, that facade cracked wide open. Ukraine's audacious weapon choice, Neptune cruise missiles, the same lethal beasts that sank the Moskva flagship, pierced Russia's densest defenses with surgical precision. Drones and missiles infiltrated layers thought unbeatable, mocking the boastful claims. What dark secret weapon breached this fortress? How did the untouchable become vulnerable? And whispers spread, was this just the start of the unraveling? Rumors swirl of more retaliatory shadows looming. Could Ukraine's next move freeze Russia's resolve? Imagine the elite shivering in their mansions, as Putin's war boomerangs harder than ever. The scent of burning fuel mixes with the bitter taste of defeat, electric surges flickering like dying breaths. Why did Moscow's defenses crumble so completely? The answer hides in a storm of unyielding Ukrainian ingenuity. Summary of the previous part: what seemed to be an unbreakable defense around Moscow, including advanced missile systems and drone defenses, was shattered on the night of October 31st. Ukraine's clever use of modified Neptune cruise missiles and internal sabotage exposed the vulnerabilities in Russia's military strategy, leaving its capital dangerously unprotected. Imagine a fortress, a promise of impenetrability draped across the heart of Moscow. Missiles, drones, and sophisticated radar systems stood guard, the ultimate shield against any aerial threat. But on that fateful night, the facade crumbled. Could all that might, all that power, be nothing more than smoke and mirrors? As the clock struck midnight on October 31st, darkness swept over the city, not just from the night sky but from something far more sinister. Ukrainian forces unleashed Neptune cruise missiles, those very same weapons that had once sent waves of despair through the Russian Navy by sinking their flagship. But this time, they weren't aimed at ships. They were on a mission deep into enemy territory, stalking their prey with a lethal grace, flying low and swift to avoid detection. How could Russia's air defenses, touted as the pinnacle of military prowess, fail so spectacularly? The answer lies in the brutal calculus of war. As Ukraine prevailed in bitter skirmishes, Russia's forces stretched thin, pulling top-notch defense systems to the front lines, leaving behind a shell of second-rate operators and outdated technology to guard the capital. But technology alone isn't enough to guarantee safety, especially against cunning infiltration. Under the cover of darkness, a small cadre of Ukrainian special forces slipped through the underbrush, past high-tech surveillance and armed patrols. They bypassed the supposed impregnable shield, planting explosives on Russia's critical fuel pipelines. After the operation, the GUR, the Ukrainian intelligence agency, taunted Moscow, revealing their vulnerability. So, what does this mean for the mighty Kremlin? The implications echo like thunderclaps across the nation. If such an elaborate defense can be breached so easily, is the empire built on fear and military strength beginning to erode? As panic spread through the capital in waves, a creeping realization settled in. The protectors of Russia's power, once a source of national pride, were now the architects of their own humiliation. The facade cracked as lights flickered and families huddled in fear, forced to confront the grim reality of their defenses. The air crackled not just with the smell of burning structures but with a palpable tension. Was this the dawn of a new chapter in the ongoing war? As each minute ticked by, the stakes grew higher, leading to a deeper, darker confrontation that neither side could ignore. Would another retaliatory strike follow? Would this unprecedented vulnerability prompt a desperate response from Putin? The answers hung heavy in the air like smoke from the fires ignited that night, leaving everyone wondering what chaos would ultimately unfold in the days to come. The strength of a nation's leadership is often judged by its military might and the consistency of its narrative during times of crisis. Recently, however, that narrative has crumbled like the Vladimir Skya transformer under an unexpected assault. But why does a staggering voltage of 750 kilovolts matter? Simply put, it represents ultra-high voltage, a system crucial for transporting vast amounts of energy over long distances with minimal losses. The Vladimirskaya transformer is far from a standard power station. It serves as a critical junction, gathering energy from two of Russia's largest nuclear facilities, the Smolensk nuclear power plant and the Kostroma thermal power plant. Thus, Ukraine's attack was not merely about dimming lights in Moscow. It effectively severed a key artery of Russia's nuclear energy infrastructure, significantly impacting the operational capabilities of its military industry. What elevates this disaster is the vulnerability of the structure that sustained such a blow. This was an attack on a system already fraught with decay. Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service shed light on this troubling reality. The Russian power grid has been operating under severe duress even before this incident. Western sanctions have hampered access to critical technologies, spare parts, and maintenance services, traditionally provided by firms like Siemens and ABB. As a result, outdated Soviet-era equipment is stretched thin, forced to function without essential components. The repercussions are alarming. There exists a staggering 25 gigawatt shortfall, representing approximately 9% of the entire grid's capacity. Moreover, the Koltsovoy line acts as the lifeline for the Moscow military district. If this line, the crucial artery of military logistics, is compromised, the Russian army would find itself stumbling back to logistical methods reminiscent of the 19th century. Now, one must ask, what happens when military strategy and infrastructure collide in the heart of Moscow? How does it change the game for both sides in this relentless conflict? As the dark shadows of uncertainty loom larger over the capital, a crucial reckoning is at hand. In the wake of dire attacks on Russia's energy infrastructure, the nation finds itself vulnerable like never before. The Koltsovoy line, vital for the military district in Moscow, is in jeopardy. Without this essential supply line, the Russian army risks regressing to inefficient 19th-century logistics. Imagine the chaos: millions of tons of fuel requiring slow transport by rail and road, open to Ukrainian drones and sabotage lurking around every corner. This extraordinary operation's success against militarized guards reveals a shocking truth: Moscow's defenses are alarmingly weak, exposing the regime's security apparatus to infiltration. As high-tech cruise missiles strike and low-tech sneaks slip through, the facade of safety crumbles. Putin's colossal investments in air defense have yielded little return, leaving his regime cornered. These stinging attacks serve not only as military blows but as psychological warfare, echoing Berlin's destruction in 1940, where promises of safety were shattered by the very onslaught that was supposed to be kept at bay. Putin's narrative of a secure Moscow crumbled on that chilling night of October 31st. The capital's two lifelines, energy and fuel, are severed, and more disruptions loom on the horizon. This crisis marks an irreversible collapse, stripping away the final assurance of security handed down by Putin's regime. The balance of power shifts as the consequences of aggression return home, forcing Moscow to confront the chaos it has wrought. As the weight of these events bears down on the regime, one question lingers: what will happen next? Prepare for the unexpected. The war's return to the heart of Russia could change everything. Will it spark a backlash against the regime, or send Moscow into a frenzied response? The stage is set for monumental changes, changes that could reshape the course of this conflict and plunge Russia into uncertainty. Imagine witnessing Putin's mighty fortress crumble like sand under relentless waves. Can the Black Sea bastions, worth millions, truly falter against mere flying machines on that fateful night? Picture it: November 2nd, a swarm of Ukrainian drones pierces the darkness, shredding Russia's defenses into oblivion. Disaster unfolds. The port at Tuapse in Krasnodar, a vital Russian oil hub, erupts in furious flames. An oil tanker burns, aflame. Rosneft's loading pier lies wrecked and useless. The entire port teeters on total ruin. As chaos grips, Tuapse residents tally over 13 thunderous booms, each echoing like cannon fire in the night. This screams a savage aerial onslaught. Russian leaders stand paralyzed, muttering lamely about slight port damage amid the blasts. Witness this humiliation: not just a battlefield slip, but a raw confession of vulnerability against their own prized treasures. Putin's southern swagger? Reduced to smoking ash and twisted metal. Tuapse serves as a crucial southern gate for Russia's crude oil and refined goods to global buyers. Any halt here threatens export rivers. While Ukraine pummels Russia's oil lifeline with this brutal strike, another shockwave ripples through energy veins. Recall that fiery Tuapse inferno and the shattered pride, now brace for another blow, even deeper into Russian soil. How did Ukraine shatter over a third of Crimea's critical fuel reserve in a single, daring raid? Reports unveil a precise air assault on an oil depot in Bardoskoye village, near Simferopol. More than a third of the site lies in ruins. The acrid stench of leaking fuel saturating the air. Early probes reveal 4 out of 11 fuel and oil tanks obliterated or mangled. That's about 36% of storage capacity annihilated. The Ukrainian Security Service claims credit for this meticulous havoc. And the drones didn't stop there, they unleashed fury on the defenses themselves. In that darkened night, feel the rumble and flash as UAVs from Ukraine struck hard, obliterating a Panzer S-2 air defense system and 2 radars. The cold tang of smoke clings to every breath. This brutal encore marks the second triumph over Bardoskoye base in weeks. Flames raged for 2 days after the prior strike on October 17. Why does this depot, owned by Keter LLC, the giant behind Aton gas stations, matter so much? It's a lifeline for over 100 fueling spots across occupied Crimea. By torching it, Ukraine inflicts multi-billion-dollar wounds, teaming with Tuapse to deliver a blistering double punch to Putin's regime. But hold on, the agony spirals closer to the Kremlin's heart. Picture Tuapse ablaze and Crimean tanks exploding in concert, now envision the terror creeping toward Moscow's core. Could Putin's safest haven plunge into icy chaos just as he unleashes hell on Ukraine? On October 31, Moscow suburbs turn nightmarish, with lights sputtering like dying sparks in a storm. 30 kilometers from the Kremlin, total blackout blankets tens of thousands in Zhukovsky, Ramenskoye, and beyond. The air chills, hearts race in the enveloping void. Official spin? A mere situation, or technical grid tangle? Is 224,000 souls really robbed of power and warmth due to a glitch? This flimsy Kremlin fib masks the real horror. Recall the ports in flames and tanks erupting, now the war's echo booms home. What's the grim truth shaking Russia's throne? The conflict's repercussions have swung back, dousing Moscow in fear. While Putin aims to extinguish Ukraine's glow, he flees his own city into frigid pitch. On October 30, he escalates savagely, hurling over 650 drones and 50 missiles, 700 assaults total, against Ukrainian civilians and energy hubs. President Zelensky warns, impacts severe, lives lost. One grisly toll, the Sloviansk thermal plant bombed in Donetsk region, claiming 2 innocent souls and wounding countless more. Smell the scorched ruins, feel the reverberating ground. Is this warfare or calculated cruelty to shatter spirits amid winter's bite? Putin's nefarious play, deny Ukraine electricity, water, heat, a terror siege that failed last winter. Now, with ferocious might, he hopes to crush wills, turn populace against Zelensky in surrender cries. But he overlooks Ukraine's rebirth. As blood-stained Sloviansk, retribution looms, just 24 hours later, Moscow pays dearly on its doorstep. Ukraine strikes back at the liar's false safety. Back to October 31, Zhukovsky reels. Screams flood videos like a treacherous film. Lights die in waves across parks and abodes, plunging all into suffocating black. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin cracks under truce weight, drones downed, not some fairy tale accident. Yet officials cling to situation lies. Why the deceit that could topple Putin's illusion of untouchable Moscow? The pact, war far away, you secure at home, evaporated in darkness. Defense Ministry boasts, 98 drones thwarted across 10 regions, 11 in Moscow alone, 6 aimed at the core. Not glitch, but Ukraine's massive, targeted onslaught. But that's prelude. Aims soar higher, choking war machinery's pulse. Amid civilian turmoil, targets sharpen, the 750 kV Vladimirsky transformer station, Moscow's energy lifeline, and the Oktyabrskoye army fuel pipeline. Both severed. Neptune missiles, slayers of Russia's mightiest warship, breach iron shields. GUR saboteurs leave Putin's troops fuel-starved nearby. Putin cools Ukraine, yet 224,000 shiver in his imperialist heart. Timing deliberate, as winter nears, alter war's path forever. Russia bombs Ukrainian cities for years, wielding cold as weapon to bend Kiev. October 31 counters, you freeze our homes, we chill your capital. Strategy Max, haul war to Moscow's elite enclaves, once invincible. Impact transcends smoke, total loss strikes Moscow hugely. Civilian lines falter first, elbows nudge in panic as 224,000 face blackout, heat void, water scarcity risks. Telegram chaos erupts beyond control. Then looms industrial doom. Vladimirsky feeds military realms in Oriol, Tula, tank refits, missile lines, ammo birthplaces. Shutdown halts future armies. Ukraine maims today and tomorrow's force. Electrical hum fades, machinery grinds silent in factories carved for conquest. What horror follows 224,000 in shadows as regime's mirage shatters? Could the Kremlin's iron grip on the Black Sea be crumbling before our eyes? Picture multi-million-dollar Russian air defenses failing miserably against a swarm of Ukrainian drones on November 2. Flames engulf Krasnodar Krai's vital oil port, hitting an oil tanker and crippling Rosneft's loading pier. Infrastructure teeters on collapse. Residents there hear over 13 explosions, signaling a brutal airstrike. Officials admit only minor port damage, a bitter failure that exposes Russia's inability to shield its key assets. Putin's southern pride turns to ruins. This port exports Russia's crude and refined products, so disruptions threaten global flows. Ukraine strikes hard at oil exports, while another hit targets Crimea. An airstrike devastates the oil depot in Bardaskoye Simferopol settlement. Over a third of the facility burns. 4 of 11 storage tanks lie ruined, about 36% of capacity wiped out. Ukraine's security service claims credit, their UAVs neutralizing a Panzer S-2 air defense system and 2 radars. This marks the second raid on Bardaskoye in weeks, the previous one on October 17 sparking a 2-day blaze. The depot belongs to Keter LLC, owning Aton's vast gas station chain in occupied Crimea, over 100 stations hit. Ukraine inflicts billions in damage here, pairing it with 2 pace strikes for a devastating 1-2 punch on Putin. Following these oil depot attacks that crippled Aton's operations and Russia's fuel lifeline in Crimea, with billions lost in flames, the troubles escalate far beyond Simferopol and 2 apps. What if Putin's world implodes not on distant battlefields, but in his own backyard? He thought Moscow was untouchable, a fortress of power. Yet, on October 31, 2025, suburbs like Zhukovsky erupt in darkness, 30 kilometers from the Kremlin. Streetlights dance wildly, flickering like a chaotic disco, then plunge everything into pitch-black night. Confused voices echo in the cold air, people stumbling through shadows, their shouts blending with the hum of distant generators. The stench of fear lingers as over 224,000 are cut off from power and heat. Amid the cold grips of Zhukovsky's blackout, where flickering lights and terrified shouts pierce the night, leaving 224,000 without warmth, the Kremlin's cover crumbles. Officials spout nonsense, just a situation, a minor glitch in the power grid. Panic grips Moscow's edge as people huddle in icy apartments, their breath visible in the chill. Officials deny a thing, but Mayor Sergei Sobyanin admits downed drones. Why the deception? It masks the truth, war's revenge hitting home. Putin, aiming to darken Ukraine, plunges Russians into the same abyss. Millions now glimpse Ukrainians' plight. The boomerang strikes, shattering his stability illusion. In the wake of Moscow's blackout, where officials' lies hid down drones amid freezing panic, the real truth unfolds with a shocking twist. What started it? October 30 saw Putin pivot aggressively. Unable to conquer on the front, he bombed civilians, unleashing over 650 drones and 50 missiles, 700 assaults targeting energy and innocents. President Zelensky reports strikes on facilities, hits on people, and tragic losses, 2 dead. Many injured at the Sloviansk thermal plant in Donetsk Oblast. Normal leaders avoid such barbarity. Putin wages terror, scheming to freeze Ukrainians this winter. He tried before, now doubling down with overwhelming force. He bets on breaking spirits, urging surrender demands. But Ukraine, hardened, counters fiercely. Building on Putin's brutal drone and missile barrage that claimed lives at Sloviansk, where explosions rocked the air, filling it with smoke and screams of the wounded, as he froze millions in winter's grip, retaliation turns deadly. Unaware, just 24 hours later, Moscow faces the cost. Zhukovsky's darkness returns, waves of blackouts snuff parks and homes, plunging all into void. Telegram channels buzz with chaos, officials chant, "No panic, it's just a situation." Yet Mayor Sobyanin confesses, drones downed. The lie? War stays distant, Moscow remains safe. Ministry of Defense later boasts shooting 98 drones across 10 regions, 11 in Moscow alone, 6 aimed at the capital. The blackout wasn't a glitch, it was Ukraine's coordinated swarm. But wait, the plan deepens, targeting Putin's war core. Real strikes hit the 750 kV Vladimirskia transformer station and the Kantemir fuel pipeline, fueling the army. Ukraine deploys Neptune missiles, piercing defenses to drain Russia's might. GUR saboteurs starve tanks of fuel nearby. Putin chills Ukrainians, Ukraine darkens and cools his elite in Moscow's suburbs. Timed for winter's wrath, the twist escalates the fight. For 2 years, Russia bombs Ukrainian infrastructure to freeze surrender. Ukraine signals, mirror that misery back. War breaches Moscow, paralyzing elites. Chaos triggers dominoes, civilian blackouts leading to military halt. Vladimir and Oriol power plants feed factories assembling tanks, missiles, ammo. Shutdown risks crippling production, hurting not just now, but tomorrow's strength. Ukraine humiliates Putin by exposing his fragility. Did he see this coming? As billows of smoke rose from Sloviansk, did he feel the chill of his own endgame turning against him? Fear grips Moscow. What if the war machine grinds to a halt, leaving his promised safety in ashes? The night deepens. Can Putin regain control, or will shadow swallow more? Previously, a devastating strike hit the oil depot in Kremsvardoskoye, marking the second attack in weeks. 4 out of 11 tanks lay in ruins, nearly 36% destroyed. The Ukrainian Security Service claimed responsibility. Their UAVs shattered a Panzer S-2 air defense system and 2 radars. Imagine the roar of flames licking at the night sky, the acrid stench of burning fuel clawing at your throat. Does this relentless pounding humiliate Putin, turning his boasts into ashes? As Ukraine's blows on Crimea swear and the Novorossiysk port escalate, Russia's pain worsens. Yet Putin faces a deeper nightmare, not just southern ports and smoke, but Moscow's heart exposed. What if the war boomerang struck hardest at home? On October 31, 2024, terror grips Moscow suburbs. Streetlights dance erratically, then plunge into void. In Zhukovsky, people stumble through pitch-black streets, hands groping cold walls. 30 kilometers from the Kremlin, a blackout engulfs tens of thousands. Panic whispers echo, chilling the air. Officials murmur excuses, a mere glitch. Does this flimsy situation mask the truth? 224,000 souls shiver without warmth, a stark betrayal. Could it be Russia's own darkness? Building on the Moscow suburbs plunged into sudden dark, the Kremlin spun webs of denial. In the chaos, voices rose, from disco-like flickering lights to eerie silence. The truth pierces the lie. Instead of victory, Putin mirrored Ukraine's scars. Fighting fair would claim moral ground. Instead, his strategist shifted, bombing the weak. On October 30, over 650 drones and 50 missiles targeted Ukraine, a barrage exceeding 700. Civilian sites and power hubs became kill zones. President Zelensky decried the impacts, buildings struck, lives shattered. In Donetsk-Sloviansk, a power plant bore the brunt. 2 innocents perished, others endured agony. Normal warriors spare the vulnerable. Putin's terror thrives on freezing misery amid winter's grip. He escalated this year with fury. Such waste of resources signals desperation. Did he dream Ukrainians would crumble, blaming Zelensky? Ukraine transformed, no longer yielding. Blood spilled in Sloviansk ignited a response. 24 hours later, retribution struck. Prevailing panic in Moscow marked the war's cruel echo. Ukraine's counterblow dismantled illusions of safety. Lights extinguished in waves, parks and homes vanishing. Authorities parroted calm, just a fluke. Yet Mayor Sergei Sobyanin revealed the stark reality, fallen drones. Technical failure or attack? The latter exposed the ruse. Why deceive loyal citizens? The regime's pillar crumbled, a promise of peace behind lines. That facade dissolved on Zhukovka's shadowed avenues. Defense Ministry reports arrived later. They boasted downing 98 drones across 10 regions. 11 alone in Moscow, 6 aimed at the core. The 224,000 powerless, a deliberate strike, not chance. Deeper still, targets emerged. The 750 kV Vladimirskaya transformer station faltered, city power weakened. So did the ring fuel pipeline near Moscow. Lifeline severed in tandem. Sensory assault heightened, sirens wailing, metal groaning, earth trembling. Humiliation peaked, Putin's stronghold breached. Ukrainian Neptune missiles pierced air defenses, silent killers. GUR operatives stranded Russian forces, fuel veins slashed. Timing's irony stung. As Russia plotted freezing Ukrainians, Moscow's winter abs began unheeded. War's brutality shattered more than energy. The October 31st strike unleashed dominoes of ruin on Moscow, a calculated shift. Civilian panic swelled, heating falters imminent. Water risks loomed, internet crumbled. Telegram bursts overflowed with dread. Elite homes felt war's cold vice for first time. Shock paralyzed the front line. Yet consequences rippled further, to factories in Vladimir, Oryol, Tula, the defense heart. Power losses halted lines assembling armor, munition stock. Ukraine crippled not just today's force, but tomorrow's. As Putin's tyranny invoked terror, Ukraine's bold gambit froze initiatives. Suburbs quaked under aerial retribution. 2 years of Russia's assaults turned tables. Now, messages resounded, we'll chill your core as you plotted ours. Economic tolls mounted, psychological wounds deepened. Russia's bastion eroded. Unexpected twists humbles the oppressor, igniting questions. What fortress crumbles next?